No entitlement reform will be allowed under the new administration. The current entitlements represent the economic rights of the American people, secured by them through decades of mass struggle, through labor, progressive, and other movements, and they are declared sacrosanct. Instead of looting Social Security under the entitlement reform demagogic label, we must increase the size of the average Social Security pension. The reason for this is obvious. In recent decades, many unsuspecting wage earners, lured by the siren song of Wall Street speculation, easy money, and speculative gain, have been induced to put large amounts of their personal savings into 401k and IRA accounts, which were based on highly speculative stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and other paper instruments. Large amounts of these monies have now been obliterated. They have been wiped out, not so much stolen, but destroyed as the speculative bubble has come down. The only way to secure the old age dignity and indeed the survival for many millions of our people is to increase the average size of the Social Security pension and to extend Social Security coverage to all wage earners, self-employed, and others by facilitating that process. We will also not allow the looting of Medicare. Indeed, Medicare will be expanded to compete with any remaining insurance companies of the private sector, and we are confident that Medicare for All will prove itself to be more effective, more attractive, and more economical, and will eventually evolve into a single-payer system. We will stop the chiseling of Medicare and Medicaid. Full funding will be provided. The reimbursement of doctors and hospitals will be restored to reasonable levels that allow the survival of these institutions. And we will be ruthless in dealing with derivatives where they show up in insurance companies and private insurance firms. This will make those companies eligible to being seized for abusing the public trust in what they were doing. As a result of this, a significant state sector will emerge and will compete with the private sector, and we will be able to demonstrate in practice that a mixed economy is a perfectly viable and indeed superior system to the free market, wild capitalism, deregulated casino, speculative orgy that we've just lived through. The economic rights of the American people have names: Social Security, the GI Bill of Rights, the Homeowners Loan Corporation, Lend-Lease, in the sense that it wiped out unemployment in 1940 and 1941, the Wagner Act for Labor, and so on down the line. Franklin D. Roosevelt's Economic Bill of Rights from the January 1944 State of the Union address will now be sent again to the Congress with the invitation that they elaborate this into a series of constitutional amendments. Our political rights are precious, but our economic and social rights must now also be addressed. The tradition of the Constitution is to expand the purview of our rights, including blacks, women, and others. This must now be extended to economic rights. In this regard, the following actions are being taken under the Defense Production Act, Trading with the Enemy Act, and other relevant legislation. The reactionary union-busting Taft-Hartley Act is hereby abrogated. It is declared inoperative. There will be no right to perpetuate the open shop, the union-busting policies that are common especially in low-wage employers and sweatshops concentrated in the southern part of the United States, but also in various U.S. territories such as Guam, Saipan, and related areas. These will now be subjected to the provisions of the Wagner Act. This will allow that the labor side of the economic recovery process to be made more efficient and to facilitate the mobilization of labor for national recovery based on union wages. The right-to-work states have now joined the rest of the union, and the debate about low-wage labor or high-wage, adequate compensation for labor has now been historically ended. In regard to this, the Davis-Bacon Act will now be reapplied to all federal contracts of any type under any circumstances. The Davis-Bacon Act mandating union wages for all federal construction projects. The National Labor Relations Board will no longer be a sleepy, inactive, impotent agency, sinecure for careerists on the make. The National Labor Relations Board is going to become a powerhouse under this administration. And we're going to attempt to increase the percentage of the American workforce represented by labor, since when that was the case before, the standard of living was much higher. In terms of enforcement, I'm inviting the Attorney General to investigate Wendy Graham, Alan Greenspan, and Robert Rubin for their role in blocking the regulation of derivatives or even the reportability of derivatives during the 1990s. In terms of foreign policy, I am happy to say that the good neighbor policy is back, and the good neighbor policy is now extended to the world. The period of imperialist intervention, meddling, and interference in the internal affairs of sovereign states is hereby ended. Such meddling, interference, and imperialism in the internal affairs of sovereign states is inadmissible and illegal under the UN Charter, under the Peace of Westphalia, to which the United States is not a party, under the Kellogg-Briand Pact, to which the United States is a party, and under the Conference for Security and Cooperation in Europe of 1975. This will be extended towards all countries. Specifically, I've directed the Secretary of Defense to remove all U.S. forces, combat forces, support forces, and all other forces from Iraq within the next 6 months. Their place will be taken by a peacekeeping force, which I've requested the Arab League to provide, and it's our understanding that it will be led by Egypt, Syria, Sudan, with troop contingents from other countries. The Iraq war is hereby over, and this long and useless Calvary of suffering has come to an end. I'm also ordering the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to remove and extract all U.S. forces from Afghanistan over the next 6 months. I'm inviting Pakistan and Iran, as well as the powers of Central Asia, the 5 former Soviet republics, to provide peacekeeping forces for Afghanistan. The bombing of Pakistan is hereby halted.